I hear woke people explain Juneteenth, it makes me wish that Rosa Parks personally forced y'all to sit in the front of a school bus and go to history class. Now walk with me. Somehow the left has convinced you that Juneteenth was the abolition of slavery and when a black revolution arose, but what it really proved is that some people remain enslaved mentally, and that's all it takes to keep you on the plantation. If you know the actual history, Democrats kept black people enslaved for 2.5 years after slavery was abolished until white, mostly right-wing men came on June 19th, 1865 and said, y'all have been free since 1863. Get off the plantation and go get a job. I wish we could celebrate what Juneteenth actually is, but instead we continue to let the left repackage segregation and sell it back to us. There is no such thing as a Black Independence Day, but if that's what you want to call Juneteenth, then I don't want to see y'all twerking on a boat on July 4th.
Talk about how you rush to the scene to get press coverage when there's a tragedy. No, that's exactly right.
Yeah,
you
but
laugh.
See, you're nowhere to be found.
Now, do I have the rebuttal, or does he have
He's
it?
nowhere to be
Mr. Lavin,
found.
go ahead.
Get out of here, man.
You're nowhere to be found. You talk about the needs of part of the district, and you completely ignore. You don't mention Asian. You don't mention people who are not black or brown. There's a whole district, Jamal, that you've ignored, and the district knows you've ignored it. That's why you only have 31% in the last poll.
What's going on, everyone? Sauce King here today, and we're going to talk about Juneteenth just a little bit. I'm trying to highlight something with Juneteenth is that with like in the intro you saw Xavier, shout out to him. He articulated pretty well was the fact that some slaves were not aware that they were free from the Civil War. And his point about it being about mental slavery, I think that is the most important thing about Juneteenth, is because the Democratic Party still played this game today. They still claim that a lot of the problems in the black community's life is systematic racism. When you ask what is systematically holding all black people back, they cannot even articulate what that is exactly. It's just a feeling. Oh, it's unconscious. Unconscious. When did people become mind readers? And this is the problem that I've been having with a lot of liberals is that they want to sell a story to black people that always seems to politically benefit the Democratic Party. Like, at the end of the day, if you know history for real, like if you really know American history, you know that a lot of the problems that happened in America was driven mostly by Democratic policies. Now, Republicans are the same way they are today, is that they need courage to stand up to this stuff. And then in the day, if good men do nothing, evil men win, right? And I'm not saying the Democrats are evil. I'm just saying a lot of their policies that they bring about, a lot of the things that they do is not very durable when it comes to time. Market regulations, that's what black codes were. Censorship, that's what they did when they was trying to stop a black newspaper organization from reporting on lynching. Gun control, it was used to keep black people from defending themselves against the Ku Klux Klan in the South, which was mostly Democrat. And then they try to play this game. Oh, Northern Democrats were actually the good Democrats. No, they weren't. Northern Democrats was complicit in this because they knew slavery was a big hold for a lot of their wealthy donors. So they either stayed neutral on it or supported it. And my biggest proof of this, and you could look this up yourself because I go by facts, not interpretations. I forgot the guy's name, but Doug, I forgot his name. But he was a Northern Democrat that ran against Abraham Lincoln. And a lot of the arguments he used was, Abraham is trying to get him a black girl. And Abraham Lincoln has a debate and say, hey, I don't want to have to marry a black girl to defend her right to be free. All you have to do is look at the debates in Chicago. All I know is he was a Northern Democrat from Chicago, if I remember correctly. Stephen something. I forgot his name. I might have to refresh my history on this. But a lot of this stuff, it seemed like when the left claims that we try to push revisionist history, they are more guilty of it than we are. When we revisionist history, it's just we take a different interpretation of the facts. While when they do it, they try to distort the facts to give their representation of history. That's what the 1619 Project was all about. Oh my God, the country was founded on slavery. When 1619, where was this a British colony? I can't speak today. Colony like India was, right? I believe I remember correctly. So why you didn't say India was founded on white supremacy, right? But God forbid you want to teach PragerU in schools and they're ready to fight you. So in this next clip I'm about to show that I'm optimistic about the future, right? Some people aren't. I am, because a lot of people my age. I had a talk. My son had his birthday party this weekend, and I had a lot of friends, and we ended up talking about some political issues, and I felt very optimistic after our conversations that, hey, the tides might be actually changing out here, at least for the younger folks in this country. Because I'm starting to, I think we're starting to realize that if we keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, keep playing this strategy of passing problems down the road, eventually will be the generation being left with the hot potato, aka lose. And I think this explains the poll numbers that Trump is getting from a lot of young people in this country. Let's take a look.
Look at where it is now. It's 70%. That's a 16-point drop, John. And more than that, it's not just that Joe Biden is losing ground, it's that Donald Trump is gaining ground. You go from 7%, single digits at this point in 2020, to now 21%. And again, John, I keep looking for signs that this is going to go back to normal, and I don't see it yet in the polling. If anything, right now we're careening towards a historic performance for a Republican presidential candidate, the likes of which we have not seen in 6 decades.
Imagine, this is the corporate media for you. They spent 8 years in consensus branding Trump a racist and a white nationalist, which is unfounded. They got no proof of him representing himself like that. 1999, I believe Trump won a reward for from the NAACP. You can't take that away from Trump. But all of a sudden he runs as a Republican. All of a sudden he's a racist now. Just like all of a sudden he's a criminal now after he ran for president. 77 years of life, never committed a crime. All of a sudden he's charged with 34 counts. Huh. Democrats really want to sell you like piss and say it's water. Meanwhile, actual black voters are migrating away from the Democrats and Biden to Trump in what CNN is describing as a historical shift following Latino voters. Right? But Trump's a racist. This is why they focus so hard on narratives. Because they know they can't really argue on the policies. Their policies are giving us negative results. Everyone have eyes that they can see. And then you got Rachel Maddow here, right? Like, end of the day, I have to show you proof of what I'm talking about. I can't just make statements like people on the left can, right? Because people actually are skeptical of me. People will actually fact check me, right? And Rachel Maddow just finished having a 10-minute segment on Donald Trump and how, oh, look, all these right-wing people who support him. Let's take a look at the clip, because this is some of the nonsense that I'm talking about of how the left tries to repackage history and then try to use it in a way that politically benefits them. Let's take a look.
We've seen this weekend. The former president went to Detroit, which of course seems like a normal thing for a political candidate to do, big city and a big swing state, and he went to a black church trying to appeal to a demographic where he has room to grow. But he goes to this black church in Detroit, and his campaign does not take any steps to avoid the pews being completely filled with white people.
No. I thought you was about diversity, left. Now, one thing I do say is in my churches I grew up, we had white people, we had Hispanic people in there. We were considered a black church because all the deacons were black, the pastor was black, all the church leadership was black. So technically, we'd be considered a black church. Majority of our seating was black. It ain't Trump's fault that he at the end of the day, the church benefit from it too. There was more participants, more butts in the seats. So actually, he's bringing business to the church, technically, right? Because if it was a black-owned business, right? Let's play this game. If it was black-owned business and only black people showed up, then Trump came and he brought a lot of new customers, you would be like, oh yeah, he's bringing in a lot of new customers. But then you want to claim that Donald Trump is a racist when you're literally evaluating this off a racist statement. Oh, he went to a predominantly black church, but look at all the white people that's in the crowd. Imagine we flipped it and say, hey, look, Donald Trump is campaigning at a white church. Oh, look at all the black people that came along. You'll be called a racist. You'll be slammed as a racist. But the left is allowed to be racist towards the whites. And this is the problem that Democrats can never escape from their history. Democrats used to do this back in the day to black people. You used to be very exclusionary of black people because you saw no benefit in it. The same way you did with immigrants. You didn't like immigrants in the 1990s, Democrats, because you felt that if allowing immigrants into the country hurts the labor force, aka your labor unions, which is heavily in favor of Democrats. But then when you realize we could get a political gain from them, Lyndon B. Johnson realizing, hey, we'll have these ninjas voting Democrat for 200 years. When you realize we can get something politically from them, then you want to play the game, now you want to play along. Now you want to be accepting of them. Now you want to be like, oh, we're your biggest saviors. When in reality, that's a lie. The government's job is not to save people. It's to create an environment where people can save themselves. Because every time we try to get free stuff, inflation, free stuff is being misused as a bribery for whoever political party happens to be in power. At least with the Republicans, they try to not spend so much money. But there's many in their ranks that like to spend money. I can acknowledge that. That's half the party. But half the party is actually trying to do what's best for America. What about the Democrats? All of them vote in lockstep. There's no change there. There's no opportunity for change there. But I'm supposed to keep rewarding this party with my vote? Huh. You crazy as hell. But let's continue.
White Trump supporters. Then on the day, the message of his supposed campaign is that he's trying to appeal to black voters, right? That's the whole point of doing this photo op. He then goes straight from that venue, stuffed with white people, to a conference hosted by this guy who has been in the news for the last few months for saying, quote, we made a huge mistake when we passed the Civil Rights Act in the 1960s.
One, this is the game that the media plays, right? Especially left-wing media, right? They like to manipulate quotes, right? They try to find a string of words that, hey, if we take it out by itself without the beginning and the ends in the sentence or in the paragraph, we can make our statements. How Charlie Kirk plans to discredit Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Act. It's a nuanced take, right? Not every bill, like for instance, Donald Trump, right? He passed bills that he was spending trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. If you look in those bills, you'll find something in there where you say, yo, what does have to do with whatever you said on the statement for the bill? Why is this in the bill? This shouldn't be in the bill. I think we made a huge mistake passing the stimulus package, for instance. We didn't need the stimulus package. Instead of giving, steel manning it, instead of looking at it in the best light, the mainstream media tries to project it in the worst light to get you to follow a narrative. It's the same argument that they did to Charlie Kirk about the DEI pilot situation, where he said that because of DEI, now he can't help himself thinking that, damn, if he see a black pilot to question, hey, did you really get this job, or was you because you got this job because of special treatment called DEI? And this is a problem a lot of black people don't want to recognize, is that slowly they're getting preferential treatment. Affirmative action is peripheral treatment over injustices you never personally faced. But you want to piggyback off of because you see you gain an advantage for that. And this is the kind of stuff that's tearing our country apart. This is why we need to go back to a colorblind approach. Instead of caring about what your skin color is and making assumptions about you, oh, you're more impressed than this person. Lie. You're poorer than this person. You need more help than this person. You're helpless because of your skin color. We need to help you. We can't expect great things from you because of your blackness. We can't expect you to show up on time. We can't expect you to pass math tests. This is what liberals actually think about black people. Oh, you don't believe me? Research has found that liberals are more likely to change their language depending on who they're talking to. AKA, hey, they think you're dumb because you're black. They'll talk down to a lower level vocabulary so they know you can understand. AKA insulting your intelligence. The bigotry of low expectations. If you keep having a mentality or an incentive structure where people don't have to strive to be the best or don't have to be comparable or competitive with everyone else, they get to work and operate in a separate space. You lower the quality of the individual, the intellectuality of the community. And that's been what's going on with the black community. But the liberals sitting back and thinking that they're actually helping you. No, they're hurting you. I'll continue digressing, though.
Saying that he thinks black people are not qualified to be airline pilots,
Yeah,
that he worries if he's on a flight.
See, boom. Whiteness is great. Be proud of who you are. If he said blackness is great, be proud of who you are, would you be mad about that? And this is the racism that liberals don't want to acknowledge, because end of the day, Malcolm X, right? Because this is how I use arguments like this. Malcolm X says that you're nothing but a political football for the white liberal. Isn't black people being used as a political football for the white liberal? Because white liberals, if you look at stats, they have a negative bias against their own people. And all Charlie Kirk is saying is that, yo, it's fine to be white. Like, we ain't do nothing wrong. We didn't enslave people. It's just people who happen to enslave people happen to look like us. But we don't take their sins because we're not personally involved in that stuff. Just because you share skin color with slaves doesn't mean you are a slave. But look what the left put out. Whiteness is great. Be proud of who you are. Yeah. Because we're about equality, right? If black people shouldn't be ashamed of who they are, if Asian people shouldn't be ashamed of who they are, why do you expect white people to be ashamed of who they are? Because the white liberal wants to use minorities to continue bombasting other white people. Because white liberals have a bias against their own people. White liberals are the only group of people that have a negative bias against their own racial group. Black people are being used, as always. First, the Democrats used you for your physical labor. Now the Democrats use you for votes and political power. And now they use blackness as a pawn to their game against other white people. But hey, continue falling into their narrative, because the black family survived a lot of atrocities. They survived racism, slavery, segregation. But they never survived this mindset that the white liberal has put into the black community. Take that to the bank.
And sees that the pilot is black, who has been posting things like, quote, whiteness is great on social media, who has been hosting guests on his podcast to talk about how black people are inherently biologically inferior and incapable of advanced.
The interesting thing about this segment is you don't hear any clips. She don't send you any clips. She don't give you any videos. She's just giving you her interpretation of what he meant and said about these things. And this is something common with a lot of progressives and white liberals. Sorry, not white liberals. Liberals, Democrats, progressives. They tell you their interpretation of events. But when you go look at for it for yourself, you go, damn, you're reaching. Hey, you're exaggerating here. This is why they don't show you. They show you little clips because they're trying to guide you down a certain path because they want you to believe a certain narrative. Whiteness is great. The only way you can see that as a racist statement is if you've been conditioned to see it as a racist statement. Because then you should say blackness is great. You should see that statement as a racist statement as well, if we're being honest here. But you don't. If black people say, I'm proud to be a black man, I'm pro-black. If a white man said, I'm proud to be white and I'm pro-white, you'll condemn him as a racist. But you're allowed to be proud about your race, but another individual not proud to be about their race. That's racism. You're using a racist standard to justify your double standard. But you don't see it because you've been conditioned to say, hey, this is the proper way to think about things. Because we know in this society, you've been conditioned to know that you're allowed to be racist to white people, just like back in the day, white people was allowed to be racist to black people. You're literally recreating the conditions to start another civil war, essentially. And this is why I make the joke that if y'all keep this up, one day you may not be alive to see this, but your great grandkids will be seen as the oppressor, and white people will be seen as the oppressed. Because at the end of the day, the race hustlers, they always got to make sure their business is always turning. Once they realize, oh, black people are the privileged class now, white people are the under a disadvantage. How you're a majority of the population, but all these minorities get all the special treatment. Isn't that unfair? Doesn't that seem wrong to you? But guess what? Never changed. They're always going to get money off of victimhood. But black people don't see it. Instead of being like, yo, law, all of us have the same rules. All of us have the same condition. All of us have the same requirements, same standards. Instead of fighting for that, black people seem to want to use racism and white guilt to justify getting special treatment. And that's what racism has become in 2024. Racism is nearly a means to justify special treatment for a racial group. That is it. That is the motive. That is the angle. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What are your thoughts about Juneteenth, the Democratic Party, and how they continue trying to, I guess, show themselves as the virtuous, good white people. Let me hear your thoughts about that in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'll be interested to hear what you guys have to say about this topic, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.